Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing the Mid-Year Book Freak Out tag, which I did this tag last year and I really love it. I just think it's such a good way to reflect over the first 6 months of 2022 and talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, how things are going as far as my reading is going. So, very excited. I was actually tagged by Sefa from Crafty Reads, so you should definitely go check out her channel as well. I will have it linked in the description. So I thought we could do the tag portion first, and then I also wanted to look at the stats given to me by Goodreads and Storygraph to kind of give a better reflection over the first half of 2022. So yeah, we're just gonna get into the tag. So the first question is the best book that I've read in 2022 so far, and honestly, I've been thinking about this question for weeks, knowing that I'm gonna have to answer it in this video. And the thing is, I don't really have one that like stands out above the rest. I have a bunch of books that I've discovered that I've loved, but none of them have like, you know, taken that spot. So I just decided to go for a couple of books that I really loved and obviously gave both of them a 5-star. So the first one is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. I'm not saying that this book is like perfect, the plot's perfect, the characterization is amazing, but I was incredibly entertained and I just had such a fun time reading this book. Like, based on the reading experience alone, it had to be an answer to this question because I loved my time reading this, especially the ending of it. I was just having so many like reactions to things that were happening at the end of this book that it had to be mentioned as one of my favorite books so far of 2022. And I actually finished this book on January 1st of this year, so we really started out strong. And then also I wanted to talk about Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. I love the characters and I just had such a fun time reading this book and the second book as well, but this one is my favorite of the series thus far, so I had to mention it. I just love Wrath and Amelia so much, so this is also a favorite. Oh my god, I have been looking for this bookmark. Wow. Literally, I was like looking through a bunch of my books yesterday, but I didn't think it'd be in this one. Wow. Anyway, so that's good. What was I saying? This book. Good book. The next question is the best sequel that I've read so far in 2022. I have 2 for this one as well. Honestly, I have 2 for a lot of these questions just because I have no self-control and I can't stop myself. So the first one is Hunting Prince Dracula by Kerri Maniscalco. I had to choose this one specifically because I wasn't super impressed with the first one. Like, it was a fun time, but I got kind of bored in the middle of it and it wasn't amazing. So I didn't really have high hopes coming into this book, but oh my god, I loved this book so much. The romance, the setting, the plot, everything, I loved it so much. I was obsessed. It has like a little vampire-y atmosphere. It takes place in the like Dracula castle in Romania, and I loved every second reading this book. It's my favorite in the series so far. I haven't finished the last one yet, but I think it's gonna remain my favorite if I had to take a guess. So then the other book that I also had to pick for this question is Ignite Me by Tahereh Mafi. I recently, as in recently, I mean like literally last night, I finished the last novella in the Shatter Me series. So I've read all 11 books and this has been my favorite so far. I think this is generally a lot of people's favorites for good reason though, honestly. I loved this book so much and there's a lot of reasons that I can't tell you because it's a major spoiler, and I definitely, if you want to read this series, I want you to have those reactions that I had. So I will not be telling you why I like this book, but ooh, honestly, like the thing is the plot is like non-existent in this book until like the last 30 pages, but it was like reading a soap opera and I was so thoroughly entertained. I think I read this book in one sitting, which I haven't done in a very long time, but it's what she deserved, if you can't tell by me like freaking out again over it. I loved this book. So the next question is a new release that you haven't read yet, and that is going to be Book of Night by Holly Black. Also, this is the gorgeous Illumicrate edition. Look at, I can't stop talking about it. I love the foiling on this hardcover so much, but I haven't read this and I'm like kind of scared to read it, honestly, because I have a feeling that I'm not gonna like it because I've seen a lot of other people not like it, and I love the Cruel Prince series so much, and I know this isn't anything like that, but I don't want to dislike something by Holly Black, you know? I'm a little scared. I'm also like not 100% interested in the plot, but I just want to see what her adult debut is like I don't know when I'm gonna get to this one. Hopefully at some point this year. I really don't know though. And then the next one is my most anticipated release. Now, guys, I'm gonna mention it again. I really thought the answer to this question was going to be Chain of Thorns, but as we all know, it got pushed back and I'm still so sad about it. I understand why, but I'm still gonna be sad about it. But I do have another book that I am unbelievably excited for, and that is Kingdom of the Feared, which is the third book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series. Is there a name for that series? I don't know now that I think about it. But I am just so excited to see what happens in the last installment of this series. Also, it comes out on September 27th, which is literally a day before my birthday. So happy birthday to me. Carrie Maniscalco really wrote this one for me, and I'm just so excited. The next question is my biggest disappointment of the year, and that, my friends, is The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. And it hurts me to say this because I really am liking the rest of the Throne of Glass series so far. I've read up to Air of Fire, and it's just a good time. This book was not. I gave this book a 2 stars or a 2.5. I don't really know. I read Sarah J. Maas books for fun romance, entertainment, just a good story, and honestly, I didn't get any of that from this. Like, her thing with Sam was like kind of interesting, but also you knew exactly what was gonna happen, and I just wasn't interested. And it pains me to say it, I know, but I just didn't like this book. The next question involves my biggest surprises of the year, and I chose you for this one as well. First up, I have The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I went into this book not having high hopes, and I feel like that's probably why I liked it so much, because I haven't really been hyping this book up in my head, so I was like, if it sucks, that's okay. That's how I've been preparing myself for this. But it didn't suck, and I loved it so much. I love the main character, Catalina. She's like kind of dumb sometimes, but I'm willing to overlook it. I also love Aaron Blackford. Everybody loves Aaron Blackford, we already know this. The fake dating, the enemies to lovers, the workplace romance. Everything I needed, honestly. Easy 5 stars. I love this book so much. And then my other biggest surprise of the year is a classic, and I think this is like the only classic that I've read this year, and that is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I talked about this a decent amount. I loved this book so much. I started reading Persuasion by Jane Austen last year, and I got halfway through it, and I really wasn't vibing with it. I also like stopped reading it for a little bit, and I forgot everything that happened, so that didn't help, but I was hesitant going into another Jane Austen novel, but I'm sure we all know this book is amazing. Like, I'm not telling you anything groundbreaking here. We all know Pride and Prejudice is good, but I'm just shocked by how much I loved it. It was so easy to read. I really just wanted to keep going with it, which is definitely hard for classics to, you know, keep the motivation going for it, but I love this book. Big surprise, yeah. Next up we have my new favorite author, and I think for this one I'm gonna have to go with Carrie Maniscalco, just because I have loved both of her series so far so much. Granted, I haven't read the last book in both of her series yet, but I have high hopes. I feel like she's not gonna do me wrong, and I've just loved the other books that I've read by her so much. The romances are like addictive. I love the plots of them, and the vibes of her books are just immaculate. I don't even know how to explain it, but they're just so good. Next question is, who are some of my new favorite characters? First of all, this one may be a little controversial, but honestly, I'm gonna go with Nesta from A Court of Silver Flames, or just the ACOTAR series in general. I know a lot of people didn't like Nesta going into A Court of Silver Flames and still don't like Nesta after A Court of Silver Flames. I just generally really liked her character arc throughout A Court of Silver Flames, and seeing how she's dealing with this trauma that she's had in her life, and she's so strong, and I just love, I mean, in general, I liked that book a lot, but I really liked reading from Nesta's POV, which I feel like a lot of people don't, but I did. Also, I'm gonna have to choose a couple of characters from the Shatter Me series. Definitely Kenji. I love his friendship with Juliet, and also his friendship that is like kind of a friendship, but like not a friendship, but it's kind of funny with somebody else in this book, which I won't say who. I really like his character because he kind of starts out as like the comedic relief almost, which I didn't want for him, but I feel like Tahereh Mafi gave him depth as a character, and giving him like novellas really allowed you to see who he was instead of just like him cracking jokes 24/7. So I really liked that. I do like the fact that he does lighten the mood and relieve some of the tension when he's around, but also the fact that he does have more depth and he does have issues and we get to see what he's dealing with as well. So next up is a book that made me cry. So I literally never cry at books. This makes me seem like an emotionless robot, but that's the reality of the situation. Do I wish I could sob at a book every now and then? Yeah. It doesn't happen though, so maybe I'll just have to start reading sad books or something. But I also don't really read sad books, so take that as you will. The next question is a book that made you happy, and for this one I'm going to go with Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. If I hadn't seen the movie, I probably would not be choosing this book for this question, but I watched the movie first, so when I was reading this book, I was kind of like taking the visuals from the movie and like applying them to everything that was happening, and just Ghibli movies in general make me happy, so being able to like spend so much time reading this book and having those visuals 24/7 going on in my brain was just so nice. Just this story and these characters, I love them. So Howl's Moving Castle for sure. The next question is your most beautiful book acquired this year, and this one definitely has to be this edition of Lady Midnight. This is the 5th anniversary edition, I believe, and I love it so much. I debated whether or not I should actually buy it, but I'm so glad that I did because I love this cover. Just the light blue and the gold look so nice together, and then the spine is completely gold as well, and it's got like little runes on it, which I also love. And then under the dust jacket, it's like completely white, but the spine is like also gold foiled, and it's also beautiful, and I just love this edition so much. And then the last question of the tag are books that I need to read by the end of the year. I have a decent stack going on here, so I'm just gonna go through them quickly. Strange the Dreamer by Lady Taylor. I've been saying I need to read it for like a year now and I still haven't. An Ember in the Ashes by Sapa Tahir. I got this in my Come Book Shopping With Me video, and so many of you guys have told me so many good things about this series, so really need to get to that one. The last book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, I think this is actually going to be the next book that I pick up, so Capturing the Devil for sure. I need to read more of the Throne of Glass series, which I'm not going to take down because it's heavy. And also I need to read the King of Scars duology, which is back here. I'm not going to take it off my shelf though, solely because I'm lazy. Now for the last part of this video, like I said, I'm going to go through my Goodreads stats and my graphs. I don't usually use StoryGraph like for anything, but when I do videos like this, I like to import my Goodreads library just to see what all the pretty graphs look like, so I don't have to make them myself. Goodreads stats are going first. Guess what? I have indeed finished my Goodreads challenge for the year. I always set it at 50, and I met that I think last month maybe, which is awesome. Honestly, my goal this year was to read less, but that's not happening, but that's fine. I'm kind of just gonna go with the flow. So I've read 62 books this year so far, which is amazing. I think I might switch my goal to 100 at some point just because I feel like that's attainable. I've also read 2,759 pages so far, so that's a lot of pages. Now for the rest of these, I actually haven't looked at any of them yet, so we're gonna be finding these out at the same time. Love that for us. Let's have a moment here. The shortest book that I've read this year is 72 pages, and that is Fracture Me, which is one of the Shatter Me novellas. I believe this is the one that follows Adam. Not my favorite, but I still like enjoyed it enough. So, and then the longest book I read is A Court of Silver Flames, which is 757 pages. One of my goals for the last part of this year is to read a book that's over 1,000 pages though, just because in the last 2 years I have read books that are over 1,000 pages, and it just does something for me, you know, when I have that as my longest book. I think in 2020 it was it, and then last year it was The Way of Kings, so I'm really hoping that I can get a long book before the year is over. My average book length is 334 pages, which I feel like that's a little on the short side, but I feel like I've also been reading a lot of like novellas and graphic novels so far this year, so that makes sense. The most popular book that I've read is Pride and Prejudice, with 5,999,842 people also shelved. I mean, I'm not surprised, obviously. And then the least popular is this graphic novel, maybe it's a manga, I don't remember, but it's called Creepy Cat. and it's literally just about this creepy cat. And I loved it. I randomly found it at my local library one day, and I really liked it. And only 1,508 people have also shelved that book, so. My average rating for 2022 is a 4.1, which is very high. And my highest rated on Goodreads is the 4th Heartstopper novel. Honestly, deserved. A 4.7 average, honestly, like, if you don't give those books a 5 stars, you're a monster. So that's my hot take for the day. All right, so those were the Goodreads stats. I feel like she gives me the basics, but Storygraph, she just really goes above and beyond, and I thank her for that. So here are the moods that I've read so far this year. A lot of adventurous, a lot of emotional, which I don't really know if I would categorize any book that I've read as emotional, to be honest. I don't typically reach for emotional books, so I think it's interesting that this is the 2nd highest category. Lighthearted, yeah. Funny. Would I consider any of these books funny? Like, they have humor in them, but none of them are like, you know, advertised as being funny. So that's interesting. Also dark, maybe? I could see a couple of them. Next up we have pace. There's a nice even split between fast and medium pace, which makes sense. I do enjoy a good fast-paced book, and only 11% are slow. I usually DNF slow books. I like the concept of slow books. It really just depends on the execution, and most of them don't hit the mark for me, but I appreciate what they're trying to do. Next up we have page number. The majority of my books are between the 300 to 499 range, which makes sense. Only 10% are above 500 and 37% are under 300. Sure, that sounds about right. Fiction versus nonfiction. Only 2% is nonfiction, but I don't know what that 2% is. Oh, it was Sappho. Here are my genres. A lot of young adult. Nobody's surprised there's a lot of young adult. Romance. During the beginning of the year, I was reading a lot of like fantasy romance, which I think counts in the romance category on Storygraph. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it does. And then just books in general with romances, I tend to grab more. Like, not contemporary romances, but like fantasy books with romances. All-time top favorite sub-genre, I guess you could call it. I love them so much. So that makes sense that this is so high, even though I don't like traditional romance books, really. There's a lot of fantasy, decent amount of contemporary. I'm kind of surprised. Dystopian has 11 values in it, and I know that's just the entire Shatter Me series, which I just think is kind of funny. Horror, history. What's history? So they put the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, which makes sense, and the Infernal Devices series, which also makes sense, but then they put the Kingdom of the Wicked series in there, which, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Interesting. Sports? Oh, that must be Fence. But only 2 of the Fence ones. I guess the 1st and 3rd one weren't sporty enough for Storygraph. Erotica? Which one? Oh, it's A Touch of Darkness. It's really interesting to see, like, what is categorized as what. Now I want to look at this romance category. The Assassin's Blade, get out of here. There's a lot of Sarah J. Maas. Fence? I would not call any of these Fence graphic novels romantic so far. Like, I feel like they're getting there, but they're not there yet. But, you know, a lot of these kind of make sense. I feel like these are really loose categories. Very interesting. Very interesting. But my most read authors are Tahereh Mafi with 11 books, which is literally the entire Shadow Me series. Sarah J. Maas, I've read 8 books, which, yeah, it's a lot. And then Carrie Maniscalco, who is actually who I chose as my favorite author. There's Osman, C.S. Picot, which is the Fence graphic novels. And then we have a nice curvy graph. We have some parabolas, like a double parabola kind of moment going on. Pages read versus books read. As you can see, I had a nice little spike in April, dipped in May, it's spiking in June. This typically is how my reading goes. The first 3 months don't really exhibit this very well, but I know last year it definitely had this kind of look to it, because I would read like a bunch of books 1 month and then like none, and then a bunch, and then like none. And it would just like continue like that, because I would just keep getting in like mini reading slumps after I read so many books 1 month, which I think is really interesting to be able to see it like this. What month did I read the most pages in? April, I read 6,000 pages. I think I'll probably end up reading more in June, so that's fun. So I think that is the end of my Storygraph stats. But anyway, that's the end of the video. I feel like maybe this is the time to do some reflecting. How have I felt about the books I've read so far this year? I've really liked a lot of the books that I've read this year, and I've definitely found some new favorite series, some new favorite authors, but it does make me kind of sad that I can't pinpoint what my favorite book of this year is so far, because none of them have stood out that much to me. Like last year was so easy, there was no question as to what my favorite book of the year was, but right now I can't pick one. But high hopes for the rest of the year. There's still 6 more months to find a new favorite book. I have high hopes, I have reading plans, and I'm excited to carry them out. So if you did enjoy, please let me know down below how your reading year is going so far. Have you found new favorite books? What's your new favorite genre? Do you have a new favorite author or anything like that? I'd love to know, and I will see you guys in my next video.